You're watching CHCO-TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the July 2024 regular council meeting for the Municipal District of St. Stephen. I'm Florence Mitchell. Today's meeting begins with Mayor McEachern making a proclamation for Rail Safety Week 2024. Under new business, Council will discuss the Hanson Cove Access Road and the 2022 Forest Strategy for New Brunswick's Crown Lands. Council will also move to accept the recommendation of the CAO to rescind 3 policies which have been made redundant by new or updated policies: the grant policy, program assistance grants policy, and handling of municipal complaints policy. Related to this, Council will move to approve the customer service standards policy and municipal complaints policy. Now let's join Council in the Moosehead Room at the Garceland Civic Center in St. Stephen.
Good evening, Council. As you can plainly see, our Deputy Mayor and our Mayor are not in attendance this evening. Both are and send their regrets. So as clerk, it's my duty to call the meeting to order. And I preside over exactly one resolution, which is I'm looking for a mover for a chairperson for the evening. Councilor Otis?
Councilor Greenlaw would be my recommendation for tonight.
Seconder for that? Councilor Cornish? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Councilor Greenlaw, the chair is yours. You can chair from there if you wish. It's up to you.
Okay, so first call to order. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered today on the ancestral unceded territory of the Pascua-Makati people. So I'm looking for approval of agenda. So anybody move?
I'll move.
Seconded?
Amendment.
Yeah, sure.
Just because we are as shorthanded as we are, administration is recommending that the agenda be approved as amended with the removal of the closed session, which we will hold over and either schedule a special meeting or hold over to the next meeting, depending on timings.
That we remove the closed session until...
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. And disclosure of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the things on the agenda tonight? Okay. So adoption of minutes. Adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 26, 2024. Be approved as presented.
Second.
I've got a mover and a seconder. All in, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. Regular council meeting, so that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 26, 2024 be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I can mover and a seconder. Call the question.
I do have one comment on that.
Okay.
I believe there's a typo, probably from, I don't believe Mr. Henderson was here as the representative, and he is on there.
It is.
Yeah, it was my colleague, Xander Gopin.
We see that that's amended?
It's not a huge deal, but I just wanted it noted.
Okay. So noted. Will you send that information to,
I didn't notice it in time to.
Oh, no, but you
change
could-
it.
That's fine. We'll
Yeah, they'll.
have it amended?
you can approve as amended.
Thank you. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Then we have the minutes of the special council meeting held on July 1, 2024 be approved as presented.
So moved. Oh,
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll go right into the report of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report was in your package for review. Not too much to add, other than the financial services review continues to be ongoing. We're expecting the first data set from them, from the consulting firm, sent back to us by end of day tomorrow was the last update we had, for our review of their how they've captured the current state, so that they want us to confirm that our processes, the way they've mapped them, make sense, from which point they will identify the pain points, if you were, or the inefficiency areas, and from which they will craft their recommendations for future state. The other thing that's not in my report there is my office has been spending a lot of time doing some pre-budget preparations. In the next couple of weeks, council will be seeing a draft pre-budget submission for the CAO's office, General Government, Economic Development, and the Regional Service Commission. One, it gets us started, but also it's I want to test the new format with you, and before we get into some of the more complex departments. So if it's going to be a trial run, I think it'll make the document easier for council to understand, as well as the general public, as to what's being proposed in every business unit, and what the deliverables for the year will be, based on the budgets that are submitted. So a lot of effort going into building a new program, but I'm nearly completed, and I suspect that at the very least at the next committee of the whole meeting, I'll have the initial draft in front of you for review. With that, I think the rest of the report can stand alone, and happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you. The financial services review, are we going to be interviewed individually as counselors on that? Like, I'm not sure which one it was, but it was back in 2012. There was a review, something similar to this, and all the counselors got a chance to say something. Is this the same thing, or do they need our input?
As this is really focused on our internal procedures. We did have the one session with you folks to get some basics. The next time that you will probably be hearing from them is during their presentation of their findings. And so it's not so much a individual interview situation as it is they wanted to get what the big level concerns were from council. I've shared same from my office, but really we're trying to capture who does what, when it's done, and how it's done. And that's why pretty much every member of the team internally has been interviewed either as a group or individually or both. So they're really trying to capture what we're doing, not so much the outside influence like from council. So I don't expect you'll be asked for an interview. That being said, if there's hot button issues you want to have an opportunity to share with the M&B consultants, let me know. I can certainly make those arrangements for you. But it's just not something that's part of their proposed process.
Thank you.
Councillor Rose?
Thank you. I'm wondering about a couple things. The first thing is, with the road condition assessment, is that committee of the whole presentation, those findings will be based, they're going to be presenting the findings to the general public of which kind of roads need to be prioritized? Is that what's happening then?
What they'll be presenting is the independent analysis of all the roadways, which does provide a certain levels of priority. If you look at the GIS graphic that Mr. Morton and I have had the privilege of seeing, it's essentially color-coded like a traffic light. You got green, yellow, and red roads. We like to see green ones. We don't like to see red ones, obviously. So there will be that element of it. Everything is boils down to a pavement condition index number. So it's very scientific and very much boiling down to a number that you'll be able to compare one road versus another. Obviously, when we get into budget cycles and stuff, politics has a role to play in all things that we do. We know this, and you guys will have your own priorities. Our hope is that as we look at the plan and the justifications and the way that it was built, that council will essentially stay within the parameters of the findings that we have. But if there's a reason that council finds that something needs to be elevated, you always have that choice when we're doing budget.
The other question I have is the mayor CAO meeting in St. Andrews, where multiple mayors and CAOs from the region came together. What were the key topics that came up that were of mutual interest and the common challenges? Because I just love to hear the biggest themes that came up that were, similar, and the ones that seemed to be completely opposite in comparison of predominantly St. Stephen, St. Andrews, and St. George. And is there any talks of more increased collaboration on those specific issues in terms of maybe advocating or speaking to some of the policymakers up above to see if we can, kind of take some of that power back into our municipal hands?
Sure. So during that meeting, we cover a wide range of topics at those meetings. We've only had a couple over the last 6 months. It's kind of a new tool that we're using. The CAOs have been meeting more, have historically met more frequently, but the mayor's participation has been more recent. We've covered topics at those meetings from housing to economic development to one of the big ones that is in motion right now is waste collection and how to approach the RSC regarding whether they should get into the waste hauling business as opposed to us having contracts. So the mayors have a number of items that they deal with. Some things come to the CAOs for further investigation. Other things go up to the RSC and to Hollis and his team to work with. So it's we don't tend to have we don't tend to spend much time focusing on anything where we're vehemently opposed on anything. This is a collaboration meeting, but we're building it off of the work that the CAOs have done, which has been we've talked about. Staffing, interplay of staffing. We had that during COVID when we had people out with COVID and we needed trained operators to go for arenas or for water systems and things like that, trying to bolster those kind of relationships. We've had discussions regarding potential equipment purchases, whether that's could be a paver, it could be whatever, or a street sweeper is one that's come up many times. Can we share one amongst ourselves in St. Andrews or something and move it around? These are the types of conversations that we're having. They range depending on what's going on in the communities at the time, but it's very much a finding where we have the commonality to decide if we can move forward together.
Councilor Isop?
Just on a note, I don't know if I missed it or not, was there a Regional Service Commission also involved in those discussions?
At that level, when we have those meetings, no, we don't tend to have the RSC in attendance. All three mayors obviously are members of the board for the RSC, so they take stuff up to the RSC for us. At the CAO meetings, we have historically had Hollis there, and oftentimes Hollis will host us to keep us up to speed on what's going in the RSC. So it depends on the meeting and what the tone of it is. I know it's it fluctuates, I guess.
Follow up. I don't know. From my perspective, it's Regional Service Commission is a regional service commission. I think that they should play a more active role in gathering the communities together and providing similar services. Paving machines and street cleaning and whatever else should be regional, right? And we shouldn't be spending one individual town that would take us a week probably using a street sweeper, maybe 2 weeks, week and a half or something. I don't know. We haven't had one, so I don't know. I know Calais does, and it doesn't take very long to do it. I mean, it's just a matter of passing off to St. Andrews, St. Stephen, St. George, and get it all done. But a street sweeper that sits for 51 weeks in the garage is not useful for us, right? So we can't really go out and buy $1 million machine and let it sit there for 52 weeks, right? So I think those talks have to happen. I mean, geez, we've had this Regional Service Commission around for quite a while now, and I expected that to come out of it, but nothing has. So.
Yeah, I think my experience has been, I think the three CAOs, for myself, Eastern Charlotte, and St. Andrews, seem to be more open to those conversations than necessarily our colleague at the RSC has, whether that's due to his own capacity and his own time and his own mandates. I'm not passing judgment on him. The three of us, we all have the same type of budget. We all have the same type of concerns about our budgets. And so we're constantly looking for how do we go from buying three things to one thing if we can, just to keep tax rates reasonable and everything else. Obviously, our colleague at the RSC has a different model for his revenue generation and all those other things that he just works in a slightly different world than the other three. So sometimes it's tough to bridge that barrier, which is one of the reasons that we like having these meetings with the mayor sometimes, because we do share our concerns and they get brought back up to the RSC table, like the waste collection thing. We're all putting out our own individual waste collection contracts. We have often thought there'd be economies of scale by the RSC, who runs the landfill, also handling the collection side, and that now they're doing a feasibility study, and that all came from the CAOs and mayors getting together and saying this needs to at least get evaluated. Whether it happens or not, we'll wait for the report to come back from the consultants. But so that's slightly different worlds. It's sometimes hard to bridge the gap, but where we can bridge the gap and we can see eye to eye, we do try to work together as much as possible.
Any other questions for the Chief Administrative Officer? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is, I need a motion to accept the CAO's report as presented.
Second.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, carried. And next on the agenda would be the public comment period. Anybody in the...
Councillors, staff at the table. My name's Emil Cabot. I am a Labradorian. My family's been on the Labrador for countless generations. I always plan to raise my kids on the Labrador. My wife is a St. Stephener, so here we are. We lived on Dow Street 15 years ago when my first child was born. We left and moved out west for our second. Last year we came back. Hard drugs have had a noticeable impact on the town. That's evident. Real estate prices have also skyrocketed since the pandemic. Everything else outside of this beautiful building here is pretty much status quo from when I left, right? That's the reason why we came back. I've got faith in the community. I've got faith in the leadership here that the problems that have arisen since the pandemic will be resolved. What I wasn't expecting this year was a 65% increase in my property taxes. What's this? I went to my wife. I came down here to find out exactly what was going on. Honestly, my first thought was that town council had hired a group of local peace officers to come in and take care of the drug problem. Hey, that's a perfect reason to increase our rates. But I never got an answer. All I was told was that it is what it is, and we even increased it a bit this year. I was given no justification, no nothing. As a tax-paying citizen, I have a right to know where this money's going, so my next step was to file an information request. The last 4 months of trying to get that information request completed has been abysmal. The information that I have received, unfortunately, is too high level, and we can't see precisely where this money's going. So now last week, I had an epiphany. I got a buddy of mine from Newfoundland. He owns a town, or he's the mayor of a town, and they just amalgamated a couple years ago. They're a rounding error in size difference from St. Stephen, both in population and in area. So I had to compare numbers. I figured that everything was way out of whack. Not to 65% out of whack, but maybe still about 15% out of whack. The problem is I can't tell. So I had to compare numbers. The biggest problem between their revenue and our revenue is every resident in their community pays the same tax rate, which is 0.79. Here in St. Stephen, in town, I'm paying 1.62 and change. That's more than $5,400 a year for my house on Union Street. Everyone within walking distance of the homeless here is paying that rate. And if you're not good at math, that is double. That's more than double. So when I couldn't get an answer on the almost 15% general increase in municipal taxes this year, I was compelled to find out where the tax dollars were sent, and I filed in the access to information request. I haven't gotten a susceptible answer to that yet. So council, I have two questions. One, when are you going to align tax rates across the town? I implore you, if this isn't a reality, please look at the recent history of St. Louis, Missouri, and you'll see the results of this at a grander scale. My second question, will you please ensure I'm provided with the level of disclosure in my RTI PPA request without making me file non-compliance with the provincial government? Your expenditures are too broad, and I'd need more than an X-ring to see where, tangibly or statistically, all the money is actually going. We need to see are not trade secrets. This is the operational costs of running a town. If the best you can offer is to have me sit down and be shown exactly what's buried underneath, then prepare for questions based on full disclosure and advise when you're ready. Keep in mind, of course, this must occur within 40 days from your refusal letter per law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have a comment?
David Whittingham. I live in Ward 2 in the town. I have questions about 80 Union Street, which burnt down with the abandoned apartment building on June 17th. And I see in the documents attached to the agenda that the demolition and removal of material costs around $36,000, which is the cost to the town, which is then passed on to the province. And I assume that's going to be added on to the property owner's bill, through their property tax assignment. And also any outstanding property taxes that haven't been paid. And based on the other two properties owned by Starshine, it's likely 80 Union has about $9,000 to $10,000 in property taxes arrears. One question for the council is, and administration, water and sewer, which may be in arrears, is that something that will be charged to the property owners, or is that something that's going to be absorbed by the municipality or the town, I guess, because the rural areas aren't part of the water system? And also a question about the firefighting went on for many hours, and I'm just wondering what the volume of water was that was used to fight the fire, and either in cubic meters or gallons. And is that a cost that's passed on to the property owner? Or is it something that the residents of the town of St. Stephen absorb in a typical firefight? And another question is, if a neighbor's basement was flooded because of all the water that was used, is that a cost that homeowner would then invoice the town and would expect the town to pass on or charge to the property owner? I don't know if that can be answered today. Any of those questions?
I didn't know if you wanted to answer the first one with regards to the liens on the property, and then the next ones are Sean's probably.
Sure. So as far as, we obviously don't talk about anybody's water bill in particular, but water bills in their generality they're a lienable cost against the property. We do, if in the event of non-payment, we do file those liens, and depending on legal statuses and a whole bunch of things that go down, sometimes we get paid, sometimes we don't, especially more in the case of tax sales and things like that. But we do file a lien, and we have a standing amongst all the other creditors on that property, and hopefully we recover as much as we can. As far as the water usage to put out a fire, I don't think we calculate that. We never calculate that and charge anybody based on that, as far as I know. Do we, Chief?
No, we've never done that. It is possible on some of the trucks to know what the volume of water was used, whereas others it is not. So no, that's not something that we've ever done.
I just have a question. How would the water volume on fighting that fire compared to other typical fires that would happen throughout a typical year at other structure fires?
That's a big structure, big fire, big water. There was a fair amount of water used, absolutely, as would be expected for a large structure fire like that. Probably one of the higher uses this year.
There you go. I will note that it is something within the municipal budget, actually, that the fire department the fire department actually pays the utility for water every year. Sometimes they use more than that, sometimes they use less. But it is we do pay from the operating fund into the utility. So it's, overall, in general, that money is designed to ride the flow of ups and downs and at least make the utility even as it comes to firefighting activities. Now, in full disclosure, anything that comes out of the operating budget does hit the tax base and is shared across the municipality as firefighting is. So, if in a sense, taxpayers do subsidize that, but not directly through utility rates; it's through property tax for everybody.
Yeah, so if it's unmetered, right, we can't tell how much was used, but if you fill pumper trucks up, you know how much is metered, and that gets transferred over to the utility, correct?
No, that's not correct. We pay a flat rate in our budget for water consumption regardless of how much we use. And based on my math, I think we pay a pretty good rate, probably the highest rate of all.
We do pay the legal maximum under the Act. We always put our number at the legal maximum for that water transfer to subsidize the utility for those costs.
And on the other one, on the building on 80 Union Street, when it was torn down, was that done so under the Dangerous and Unsightly Goods Act?
Yes, it was. Those costs will be filed under the Dangerous and Unsightly Act.
So we will be applying for those costs through the Dangerous and Unsightly Premises Act and being reimbursed by the government of New Brunswick. Yeah.
Do I have time to ask another question? It was regarding the bylaw officer. In this past year's budget, it was budgeted to double the position from a part-time 20 hours a week to a full-time equivalent. And I'm just wondering what the status is on that. That position, that additional position, I don't think was filled. And I'm just wondering if that money is still in the budget for that, or it's being assigned to something else.
The money is still there. We've been working on the best use of those funds from an enforcement and largely to a large degree of visibility mentality. Having another, it is administration's position anyway, that having another unmarked, ununiformed officer on the streets for another 20 hours a week is not going to meet with the goals that council has set for us, largely because what is needed is the visibility side. So we're focusing on currently using those funds, or trying to do how best to use those funds to increase the visibility of our officer when he is on the streets. Because right now he's driving around in an unmarked vehicle and you wouldn't know him from anybody else out there. And that's one of our major concerns, our primary concern right now. We will be having more discussions at this as we get into the budgets, the departmental budgets in the next few weeks, as far as 2025 and manpower.
I have one question. Are there specific hours of work for the bylaw enforcement officer, or is it?
He has a typical work week, but that varies. It does vary. He has the 20 hours. And he has been mixing it up when he's working. Yeah.
One brief one? Okay. It's Kev's department. I noticed in his report that a permit has been applied for I'm going to call it waterway alteration or something related to the cove and the embankment in the cove to thin out the brush. And I'm just wondering if the embankment there, if the permit comes through and it's done in the fall, if it's going to be bush hogged down or if there's going to be some selective thinning of bushes and rose bushes and things like that.
The situation is the rose bushes that are there, they are invasive, and so we would like to get it grubbed completely so that doesn't take over, because it was only cut back, I would say, in the last 12 to 18 months, and so if we can clear it, we're still waiting on approval, still working with the province on that, then we will clear it, and then we would hopefully, if we get permission, to put some grass seed down and mow it so it's visible. So first first kind of thoughts are, we don't want to lose the bank, of course. Make sure there's a route network of routes there. So, still in discussion, but the plan is to remove most of that vegetation of what we're allowed. There is distances and that we have to abide by.
Thanks very much.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Chandra Best from Ward 3. Just a couple of questions. So regarding bylaw enforcement on page 18, well, first of all, I wanted to comment that I thought it was good to see that the bylaw officer is touring around and that he noticed a few properties where the pool didn't have the fence in. I thought that that was good. I was glad that he would catch that. Obviously, that's his job, but I was just wondering, it might be a good idea to include in the minutes or include his report what the actual name and number of the bylaw is so that people could refer to it. And it actually might be a good idea this time of year to promote that on the St. Stephen Facebook group, Facebook page or something like that. I noticed that the Regional Service Commission is doing that on their page to talk about non-disposal of lithium batteries as being a real concern in the disposal area. So it made me think that that might be a good idea. Especially now that you have the rural communities who are now part of the town, it might be, you know, they might not be thinking about that because we don't think about people worrying about what's on our property maybe because we're rural. I shouldn't say that everybody might think that way. But anyways, also I just wanted to mention about I guess it's still about the bylaw enforcement. There's talk about a couple of different properties where reports were made about unsightly premises, and they actually refer to Milltown and Rose Street. And I was kind of surprised to see those streets mentioned because I thought that we needed to keep that type of all info confidential to public, but also to council. So I just wanted to find out if am I wrong in that, or is that something that shouldn't be there? And I guess bring that to your attention.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I do believe that information should not be there. Am I correct there, John?
It doesn't give the specific civic numbers, but I agree that there's probably more there than there should be. But it doesn't give the exact location, so we're probably okay, but I think it's gone a little too far. Yeah, and I should have caught that.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So, yeah, and to the other note there, a little more detail and specific bylaws would be great to have in the report.
And just a quick follow-on to that is I noticed that within the reporting, within the agenda, that the reports tend to flip-flop on the legislation or the act or the bylaw under which they have authority to operate. And I think it's important for the residents and for everyone to understand that we have a bylaw and that we have an act, and that the act is actually not a dangerous and unsightly act. It's the Local Governance Act, and the dangerous and unsightly, or it's actually dangerous or unsightly, is a regulation in that act. So I think that that's important because bylaw officers are going on to people's private property. They're authorized to do a lot of different things, including demolish property, which David just brought up, and I think it's important that we document the legislation and the legal documents correctly. Thank you.
Yes, that's a good point. I actually referred to it myself as an act, and it's not. It's part of the Local Governance Act. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Is it okay to ask a couple more questions? Okay, I might be not in order on the page numbers too, by the way, so I apologize for that. Actually, I didn't reference the page on those other items, but so on the Future St. Stephen report, I was surprised to hear about the business scan and the shopping survey that's under the shopping survey. So I quickly followed up and found out a little bit more information, and I got the link for the survey and I shared it around a little bit. I was disappointed to hear that today is the last day that it's closing. I did learn that the RSC is actually the lead on the survey, so I have inquired with them as to how did this thing get distributed and online, you know, who had access to it, because I didn't. I also learned that it was distributed by mail, that the survey was done by mail, but as a rural resident living too far out of town, we did not get a paper survey in the mail, which I feel is a huge oversight. Not necessarily an oversight, but it's a huge, you're missing a lot of good information from rural residents who come into town, you know, whether we come often or not. We should be entitled to fill in that survey, and we should be communicated with about it. And I don't think that it's fair that the district can continue to use the fact that Canada Post doesn't deliver out there as a reason for not getting us out the paper survey or whatever documents are going to be mailed, because that makes me think about what's the next thing that we're not going to be informed about because you relied on paper. So my request is, can the survey be extended? You can't answer that question, but I did ask that to the RSC. But my comment or request, I guess, is that for the district to consider, how are we going to make sure that all the residents get all of the information, or at least have the opportunity to get all the information? And I didn't see it on the MDSS Facebook page. I didn't see it on the Regional Service Commission Facebook page. So I don't know how this thing was distributed. If I missed it, sorry, but it didn't get in my mailbox. I know that for sure.
Thank you. There were a lot of them mailed out. I got one way down where I am. So there must be something wrong with the mail-in list from the Regional Service Commission. We can communicate with the Regional Service Commission on that. Not 100% sure why, you know, it wouldn't have been put on our website, but I don't know if you want to talk to that, Jeff, or I think it was just probably an oversight. Future St. Stephen sent this out as one of their activities, and
I think it was on there. Jeremy, he said that it was because of the Canada Post distribution, that they just were too far north, is what he said. So, and I just think that that's not a good enough excuse. Maybe this time it's okay because it's not like a serious matter. But the reason that this really irks me is because when we first moved here, we hadn't learned about amalgamation for the exact same reason. We didn't get anything in our mailbox, and so it came upon us as a surprise. We were new to the area and we hadn't received anything. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. And one other item, do I have time? Okay, the other item has to do with the customer service standards policy and the municipal complaints policy. I had a few other things. I talked to Celeste about them already, but I had two. One question was about the fact that it references corporate values, and I'm wondering where those corporate values are documented. I see similar values documented in the Code of Conduct for Council, but they're not exactly the same as the code of those that are documented in the policy. So I was wondering where one finds those and what their definitions are. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is I think that the customer service standard policy would really benefit from having being looked at from an accessibility lens. I know that the province intends to bring forward legislation next year around accessibility, so a lot of requirements will be introduced and probably they'll be phased in over time. But I think that given what we know about New Brunswickers and the number of disabled people in New Brunswick, the learning disabilities, this high level of seniors, that not only do we have residents, but I'm sure we also have staff who may have a disability, a learning disability, a visual impairment, and I think that it would be easy to incorporate a few items into the policy now, such as even just in correspondence to use standard font size, standard font type, standard font color, layman's terms, very plain language, nothing too complicated, and that would be giving us, we would be getting a little bit of lead into what's going to come forward, which we'll probably start to see next year for sure after the legislation's introduced.
Thank you. That's a good idea on the accessibility stuff. Jeff, can you speak to the corporate values, where that's found?
Corporate values they don't live anywhere at the moment. They were drawn from our discussions around our values and stuff during our strategic planning sessions. They were drawn from that, but you won't find them as a standalone document at this time. But the point is well taken. That we should have that, and it should be I know in my past offices it was a framed document hanging on the wall in the office. So we can work towards that. I'll also address, if I can, I'll also address the accessibility side. Currently working on an accessibility policy in and of itself, a standalone. largely based off work that I had done when I was working in Ontario under the Ontario Disabilities Act. They had a very specific, and it addressed all the things that that the citizen has mentioned, with font color, font size, which fonts. There's lots of things that to build into the next part of our sophistication of what we do. So that is, I'll say it's coming. It's a work in progress, but it'll be a policy that will be overarching of all things we do. And we've already started with at least making efforts to draft our bylaws in more plain language, especially some of the more complex things like the work that Alex's team has done with zoning bylaws and adding more graphics so you don't have to understand the front yard versus the side yard versus whatever. We're going down that path, and now I'm working on a policy right now that will actually entrench that across everything we do, similar to our accountability policy. So, the point is very well taken. My preference is to have that be an overarching policy that applies to all things, as opposed to trying to feed it into every individual policy.
Thank you. Now, representative from Future St. Stephen, you wanted to?
Yeah, just to speak to the distribution, it was shared online through a lot of the channels, the Chamber, Downtown St. Stephen, as well as our page. And Jeremy's correct, unfortunately with flyer mailouts, it's not always possible. We're kind of stuck in that situation. But what we can do is we can make a note of that, and I can speak to you after to understand where you are, and we can see if we can come up for a solution for future surveys that we can share the information with the RSC.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The last one, it's still pertaining to the customer service standards policy and the municipal complaints policy, is I know it says that the customer service policy will be reviewed annually, and then the complaints policy would be reviewed as needed, or I forget the terminology. To me, it seems like those two should be reviewed at the same time. I'm actually of the opinion that they should be one policy combined, but if they're not, I think that they should be reviewed together because they do go hand in hand. Thank you very much for listening and for replying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next would be reports. So the first report would be for, motion to,
Move into reports.
yeah, we need a motion to move into reports.
I so move.
Second.
Okay. And the first one would be protective services.
Thank you. Protective services. As far as fires go, we had 43 calls for the period between June 19th and July 22nd. That is above average. And I've been saying that a lot, so I think I need to redefine what average is in my mind. But it seems that the average is going up. I don't have much else to talk about as far as fire goes. I did want to jump over to building inspection. Corporate Services has asked me to make a note in my report, which I did, about the unbudgeted expenditures of $29.67 and $33,063.65 related to the demolition and removal of 80 Union. So I have done that as requested. I've also had a lot of questions, and we get these questions a lot, about dangerous and unsightly cleanups. Why do some happen quickly and others do not? There is no really short answer. There are a lot of different scenarios. For instance, is it insured? Is it not insured? Are there outstanding orders on it already? What is the state of that building as a result of the fire, and does it constitute dangerous? Those things have to be determined and will impact how quick we are able to clean up. The status of ownership, does the province have liens on it? There's a whole bunch of stuff boxes we have to check quickly in some cases, depending on the situation. So you will see some that get cleaned up within days, and others sit there for months. And and it's a factor of all of those things. We do our best to get them all cleaned up as quickly as we can, but in some cases our hands are tied because of one or more of those factors, and there are more factors. I'm sure I've missed some, but that's a very high-level, broad description of how those things are dealt with. I don't think I have anything else that I had planned to comment on as far as protective services, but I'm sure there may be some questions, so.
Yeah. Any questions?
Law enforcement? Sure. Okay. I'm going to make the statement not as a funny ha-ha, but a funny sad situation. Over the last week or so, I, plus many others, it's in the report here, item number 3, received numerous complaints about a mental health issue on King Street. And I think most of us are quite familiar with it. There's a gentleman that's hanging pretty close to the church in Tim Hortons, clothed sometimes, not clothed other times. And actually sort of disgusting when you have young children or other people walking the streets. I know, Sean, this is not in your turf, and I do feel for the RCMP, because there are apparently no stringent laws that deal with this. But I was challenged by one of the residents. If I go up tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in front of Tim Hortons in the intersection and take all my clothes off with a bottle of rum in my hand and a cigarette in direct traffic, what's going to happen to me? I don't know. They don't know. So the problem being is, it's just an observation of something else. It's a sad situation. It's not a funny situation. But I noticed that the gentleman likes to step out in the street a little bit too, and I would hate like hell to see one of our residents hit anybody and kill them or injure them. And that is probably what's going to happen. So I don't know, Sean. Like I said, I feel sorry for the RSMP. They just don't have the tools, apparently, to do anything about that. So they were just curious if I did that, what would happen to me? I'm sure I'll be charged with indecent exposure. You may laugh at that too, but the bottom line is that if the ordinary person did that, we would probably be incarcerated and detained for something. Right now, we're letting some of these people literally run wild. Anyway, that's all I had to say, Sean. Nothing to do with you. No reflection on the RCMP whatsoever. I feel sorry for them now. A year ago, I was kind of upset with them, but I've been dealing with this over the last 18 months. These officers, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should take the time as residents, when you see these people, to congratulate them for their service, give them a wave, smile, because I feel sorry for them. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say about the issue. I just know that we're, as residents, are really upset that things aren't really getting better. Thank you.
Councillor Eastman?
Yeah, Sean, watching the news like I do, like a hound, and watching Jasper burnt down. Well, how are we doing with the municipality emergency plan?
I have a draft plan that is ready for review. We need a committee. We need a bylaw.
Which is the new bylaw. Yeah.
Which is the bylaw, right?
Yeah.
So in actuality, if we were to have an emergency today, there's nothing stopping us from pulling the draft plan or the old plan or any plan out and using it. So I'm not worried about it in that regard. We have a script that we could use. It's not approved or registered with the province, but we do have an all hazards plan that would deal with typical things such as types of evacuations, things like that. It does exist. So if that makes you feel any better, I offer you that.
Well, it would make me feel better if the public gets the chance to look at it. Because we have no idea where to report to, who to report to, what's going to happen anywheres.
I will say that the plan is a generalized thing. I know there's been a lot of talk about evacuation plans and things like that, and typically, those things aren't, we don't develop specific plans for specific areas. We have a guideline of considerations. If there's an event, these are the things that you have to consider. The same for, any number of things. If it's a blizzard or power outage, we just say, here's the checklist, things you've got to think about, and evacuations is the same. And it's difficult because, what do you write in the plan? Where do I say that you're going to report to when I don't know for sure? If we're going to evacuate the whole town, there's no point in me saying you need to check in at the GCC. You see what I'm saying? So those things have to be brought out at the time. It might be that you report to Macadavic Place in St. George. Don't know. I mean, the incident might impact St. George. It might have to be go wherever you can go and stay tuned to the radio, and the radio will tell you a number to call and what you need to do. So the plan that I have talks about those things but doesn't get into the specifics because it's impossible to forecast what is going to happen and what the actions will require. So I've tried to do it on a incident command based structure with generalized checklists for generalized type of incidents, and that's what we have, and that's what we will bring forward when the bylaw gets passed and the committee is formed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Rose?
I just have a question here about that there were 14 calls based on motor vehicle accidents. So I think before you clarified that just calls, not actual accidents, but I wasn't sure. Correct me on that. But my biggest question, it's kind of twofold. A, is this much higher than typical this time of year? Probably not, but just curious. And then B, is there anything MDSS can do generally in terms of ATVs running through town, doing, wheelies the whole way up King Street? I mean, I know it's a struggle. I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do to impact it in any way. I don't know if there's even like new technology that they might use in other urban areas to kind of like catch that activity via radar gun. I'm not sure. It's just, it can be quite dangerous, and it's not so much for me as the driver, but the kids that are driving are sometimes around 13 years old. So I have concerns about that flying through town, and just wondering if we talked about that in the past. We may have, or if there's anything we can do at all.
Well, those things are motor vehicle infractions, and motor vehicle infractions are the mandate of the RCMP.
I guess the only thing I would add is that in certain locations in town, we do have our community cameras that can assist the police with investigations. But we only access that if it's requested by our law enforcement partners. But we do have in key locations cameras that go up our streets that may be able to provide that kind of assistance.
Go ahead, Councilor Rose, just a sec. Councilor Eastman.
Other question I've had about that is because I've had citizens tell me about situations where they've had something criminal caught on their camera, but the RCMP has told them it's their responsibility to get that footage and get the footage to them, otherwise nothing happens. I do have issue with that because I don't think it should be on the citizen to, especially, most people are not super tech savvy. They might have cameras, but in terms of actually knowing how to download the footage and get it to the RCMP, and it's just a lot on the citizen's end. So that would be another follow-up question is, if we catch something on our cameras, is it municipal, is it citizens of our community paying our administration to do that type of work and sift through hours of video footage in order to catch those kind of things? Do they make a formal request to obtain it, or is it's our responsibility to find it, download it, and hand it over?
Our approach with law enforcement has always been that they request it from us, usually, and can usually narrow down the date and time that they're looking for. Same thing happens with the cameras within this facility we're sitting in. They will say, hey, do you happen to have this shot at this time, and the guys will look it up. So it's not us looking through hours of footage. We can usually narrow it down within, an hour of download. The community cameras we don't actively monitor, so we would never catch anything. It's always retroactive. It's always, hey, would you happen to have footage from this? And then we'll look it up for them. So, yeah.
Just to comment on that, Councillor Rodas, I've seen a lot of this lately, and the bottom line is the other night at the new ice cream stand out in the highway, there's a group of people standing there. A young fella came by with I call them crotch rockets. He was only going on one wheel, so I thought it was a unicycle at first, and very high, and looked at all of us and waved while he was going by with his wheel up in the air. 30 years ago, I was standing in the same spot when a car backed out, hit by a motorcycle, and I seen the man die in front of me. So I had a flashback. Bottom line is, I got to give the RCMP a little bit of credit here. Next day, the RCMP, about that same time, was parked just down from the ice cream stand. The problem being is, for those people who are not familiar with four-wheelers and motorcycles, Earl and I could go out with our bikes, put a hoodie on, take the license plate off the back, drive down the street, and try to catch me. You ain't. The bottom line is, I'm not sure how the police even capture these guys. If they do go after them and they get killed, not the police officer, but the occupant of the vehicle, the bicycle or bike, I don't know, Earl. They'd be hard to catch, wouldn't they? They'll go every back alley, wherever they're going to go. So, again, it is definitely a problem. It's a hard one to manage, and I feel sorry for our officers out there trying to catch them, because I don't believe they can.
Okay, thank you. Yep. That's right.
I have a couple of comments on that, just my observations, and I've had a lot of incidents with four-wheelers and up my way, and to the point that I was passed on King Street and somebody punched in my side mirror as I was driving. I could have just easily went like that, and he would have been off in the middle of the other lane, and that's how much, and it's happened to me, and I've had when I've turned around to see where somebody lived in the ATV, the parent showed up at my house. So I've had a lot of those things, but I think we can help the RCMP, and I've asked Sergeant Stubbs, or not Sergeant Stubbs, actually, when he was here, that what can we do to help you? I mean, is certain pinch points in town that you can stop them going to, and I know one of them is at the end of Hawthorne Street where they get on the trail. I know the legal users of four-wheelers and side-by-sides will be upset with that, but there's a lot that all the ones I see don't have license plates, and they wear helmets just to protect their identity, and so that's what they do. But we can start, limiting the access some of these places. When I'm playing up in the courts up in Milltown, there's like 5 or 6 of them, and I've seen 2 police cars there last night, and not a soul on a four-wheeler. Mm-hmm. So it's that just being out there in the presence of them, they don't show up, but I've seen them there with 2 guys on the four-wheeler and 1 guy on the back rack hanging onto it as they're going up Milltown Boulevard or up on Boundary Street, and it's just getting a little crazy. And as far as the mental health thing, I mean, the other day I actually talked about, and I agree with you, something's going to happen. Somebody's going to end up ruining the rest of their life by hitting this person on the middle of the street. I've never observed him, and nobody that I've talked to ever observed him naked. He's wearing clothes, but he's very scantily, right? And it is a concern, and I did go down to actually say, I'm going to go down to mental health and see what, talk to somebody and see if I can get a number to contact. And that place is locked up like Fort Knox now. I used to be able to go through social development, and all of a sudden the security guys around the corner, I didn't even see him, and all the little slots at the bottom of the windows are all taped up. You can't even talk to anybody. And it says for mental health, go to 41 King Street. I says, is that on the other side or is that in the front? And he goes, oh, it's on the other side. And they have an intercom, wouldn't let me in unless I had an appointment. So I couldn't even get a number to go and call these things. But I think in mental health, I mean, the police have a lot on their plate. And unless they're going to a call that involves somebody in mental health threatening or breaking the law, that's what their mandate should be, not to have somebody that's walking on the street waving his hands and everything, and that's a mental health call. It never used to happen before, and it's just the times have changed, and I don't know what to do, like, this guy needs help. And it's for his own safety, and it's for the public safety. And I mean, he might be the greatest kind of guy. I mean, he's a big brute too. He's a big fella, right? So I mean, he is kind of scary when you do that. So we have to open up some conversation with somebody to get this straightened out. And I don't know who it is. If it's our MLA, if it's somebody from social development, there's got to be somebody up there that can point us in the right direction to say we have somebody with mental health problems, crisis. We need help. There's got to be somebody. I mean, what we heard about the RCMP being followed up by somebody from mental health. Sometimes they have an officer there too, or whatever the social worker to talk to this person and try to get them into some kind of program. We got to have that down in this end of the woods, because we're seeing it every day, and it's sad, really. I mean, I don't know what the world's coming to, right? So that's my observations, because I personally am involved in that, and I see it every day. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you. Councillor Eastman, follow up?
Yeah, back at Sean again. I see in the parking side of the house here, as page 19 of the agenda, it seems 6 warnings given to people parking illegally at the mall and boulevard. This is a typical statement that's been made for the last 4 or 5 months. Do we not give any fines out?
From time to time, we do give out fines. Fines can tie up a lot of time in courts if they're challenged, so we try to use warnings. But we've actually discussed today that we may have to issue some tickets. So, yeah.
One more. Thank you.
Just to Sean, could you define in the parking lot, are these tourists coming through town with big campers and staying overnight, or is it abandoned cars? Because I know that in the States, I don't know what it's like here, but I think it is in Canada, like Walmart welcomes them in their parking lots at night so they can get their groceries and other things, or is it just individuals leaving their cars there, or what's the situation?
Honestly, I don't think it's any of that. I think it's just probably people in handicap zones and things like that during the day. To be honest, I couldn't answer exactly, but I suspect that's those type of things.
Okay, let's move on to the infrastructure.
Okay. Again, I didn't have a whole lot I wanted to comment, but just I do have a general statement. Again, we get a lot of questions. I want to talk about asphalt. I've talked about that a lot. For the record, we're still hauling asphalt from St. John, which complicates life. It cuts down the number of loads per day that we can do when we do have a good day. It cuts it in half, basically. But something else that people need to understand, that not all asphalt is created equally. In my report, I talk about base asphalt and seal asphalt. The plants have been running a lot of base asphalt, and base asphalt is for creating bases. So we can use that in road cuts where we've torn up to do a water and sewage repair or something like that. But if you want to patch a series of ruts or potholes in front of Tim Hortons, it's no good. You need the seal asphalt. What it comes down to is the size of the aggregate. We got a load the other day, and it was like spreading golf balls. So you can't put that on King Street, but you can put it in a road cut. So if you wonder why we're focused on what we're focused on, a lot of it is availability of the product that we have. Also, for record, Jeff asked me today, when are you going to wrap up the asphalt program? Well, the answer is never. Last week, I think, these aren't exact numbers, but we probably filled 4 road cuts and dug 3 more. So we came ahead 1, and there's still 40 out there. So we're working at it as much as we can. It's an ongoing thing from the time the plant opens until the plant shuts down, and we just try and get as much of it out there as we can. A complicating factor, today our roller broke down for the 2nd time this year, so we're trying our best to hold that old piece of equipment together. I did call to find out what a rental is worth, and they're not cheap. And do I rent it from April to November? It's a lot of money. So we're juggling those things and doing the best that we can. But we are trying to hit the places of highest traffic first. So that's what I had to say in general, but I'm open to questions on that or anything else.
All right, any questions on the infrastructure report? Councilor Rodas?
Yeah, there's a brutal pothole out by St. David Ridge. Like when you're coming right off the ramp, like it's a crater in the moon. So if you ever see it, you want to try to patch that one. But I wondered about it because it's not really even within the road. It's like on the corner. It's almost like half of the corner of the shoulder. But yeah,
That's washed out every year.
By St. David's Ridge, you say?
Come off the highway, along St. David's Ridge, and it's right at that friggin' corner.
Not my territory. I can't fix that for you.
DTI.
Councilor Heisup?
That's also another thing that would be useful for the Regional Service Commission and the municipalities to share services on is a roller and a small asphalt machine and some tamper that we can, sign out for certain times and whatever. I don't know how that would work as far as sharing it, but I mean, because a lot of people have a lot of work to do, but at least we can have accessibility to a small paving machine would, instead of having to throw it on the thing and roll it, right? So I think that would, that'd be another good thing maybe in your talks, Jeff, with and the mayors with the different individuals. That's something that would be very useful.
Councilor Cornish?
Eamon and I seem to be on the same page tonight. We must be talking to the same people. I got a call the other night about that hole. I have seen it several times. I've been able to avoid it. I'm putting tie rod ends on my truck regularly, but that one there I haven't hit yet. At our next COW meeting, I'll be introducing, I wanted to get it out today, a process. I've been talking to some of the councillors. We have no tools to deal with the municipal government. We get the phone calls, as I explained to the individual. I have no authority in that area. Our town has no authority really. It's a provincial matter, and it goes into a dead hole because we have to call Fredericton to get something done. And if I complain about that out there, or Wade or Earl complains about it in their area, if it's not in front of their house, they're probably not going to talk to you. So just to put it to sleep, the next day or so, you're all going to receive a process diagram of suggestion of what we might be able to do, and we'll give it to Jeff at our meeting and analyze it, because we're losing a lot of respect, particularly in the rural areas, because we are identifying things that we cannot seem to fix without going through a lot of hoops, and sometimes we can do it, but likely not, maybe not. So anyway, I'll be sending something out. Maybe I'll have a little more discussion on that in the next week or so.
Any other questions? Okay, move on to the Southwest Service Commission report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With this last report, we have completed our pre-consultation draft for the municipal district municipal plan background study. Initial review is being conducted by the CEO at the time of this report. So when this is through the CEO's review, will be available for council. And so this is the precursor to developing a municipal plan for the municipal district. It also will require to have consultations with the public. So community meetings in the rural areas that be part of the new municipal plan, as well as in the former town site, as well as surveys as well that will have to be mailed out to every resident. So this report is comprehensive. It's, I believe it's around 70 to 80 pages, lots of mapping and analysis and data that we put together for this report, and it took some time to put together, but we're happy with the draft as is now, but I'm sure there's going to be some good feedback from the CEO. As well, we've been working on the second round for Housing Accelerator funding. And actually, the chair has helped us in his role with the Union of New Brunswick Municipalities, making some connections. So right now we are doing some research on other communities that were successful with the first round. And for people who aren't familiar with HAF, it's a fund that is a federal fund to help communities with their planning bylaws, to update them, to make them more pro-housing. With regard to development, I'll just do a high level. At the time of the report, there was 60 building permits reviewed for zoning, 22 development permits, and $5.5 million in construction value. There's been 17 new building lots added year to date, and 10 new net dwellings and 5 new in the report. We've also started some enforcement files in the rural areas of St. Stephen, as well as working with building inspection on a building and a zoning complaint in the old town site. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to community services. Kev?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start off as usual just with the Civic Centre. It's been a good time for our general maintenance cleaning. We are still offering our indoor pool as well as our outdoor pool. Just to some of the aqua classes, just in regards to assisting with the schedule, we try and offer a varied schedule. I had a chat with Councillor Harding a couple of weeks ago just regards the schedule at the Milltown pool, and there was just some concerns that it wasn't as varied as it used to be, and we just try and accommodate as many different programs as we can, whether that's swimming lessons, autistic swims, Special Olympic swims, lap swims, and so having the GCC pool has been great. We didn't do it last year because there was some work going on, but it's just one of those things that we're kind of proud of. We give some additional hours to students and staff, and it's just helping with the balance of schedule across the board. So still busy. The floor is going down this weekend for the festivals which are approaching, and as Michelle and her team, they're incredibly busy with that's going on. They've got the market each week, the vendors market, which is, I think this weekend is going to be the biggest one that we've seen so far this summer. It's going on leaps and bounds, so I'm very pleased with how that's going. The big event we had in July, of course, was Canada Day. Thanks to everyone that came out and attended that. We've also had our summer concert series. It's now moving into August and moving into St. Stephen. It was in Milltown, and we only lost, I think, 2 out of the events in Milltown, but unfortunate. But we had a very wet and humid month, and that was kind of reflected in a few things. Just one more thing I want to mention about events. We've got the St. John Sea Dogs coming down in August. It's on a Tuesday night. Big plug for anybody who wants to buy tickets. They're reasonably cheap. It's on a Tuesday night, so you're not missing out on anything. And we'd love to pack the bleachers here. But the wet weather that we've had has affected a few things. There's the Legion field that we look after has been growing incredibly quickly, and some of the other areas that we've taken on. The hotel site, we had some requests through that, and for the cenotaph, which we've taken on, and just for a few weeks until the Legion gets themselves a contractor out there. It's been a busy time for our parks crew as well. We've had a few complaints just that the grass was maybe long at the field or wasn't lined, but it has been an unusual hot month, and that has been kind of reflected in the Milltown pool. The liner is still holding; it's still doing okay. We haven't lost a significant amount of water overnight. It is chewing through the chemicals, as we say. It's it's tough to keep up, but we are keeping up. It might go over a little bit on the chemicals budget, but still operational, and we've still got all our plans for the last month of the season. So yeah, it's been busy once again in community services. One item we have been looking at and working with the Works team and Sean is Rotary Field, looking for options. Now that the Legion has their fence up, there is a few that are out there, whether it's accessing through Main Street or Queen Street. We've got some ideas and some numbers, and I don't know if you want to speak any further, Jeff.
Sure. I mean, what we've worked on two different concepts thanks to Alex's team members over that have the GIS system to help us sketch some things out. Per Councillor Hyslop's suggestion last time we met, we actually took another look at the pickleball court scenario. Happy to say that we came up with a concept that allows us to put in, potentially put in roughly 30 parking spots and 3 pickleball courts in the center of the parking area. We've been investigating coming off of Main Street because the property does abut that road due to a weird shape. But I know in recent discussions with the Public Works team, that might be the more expensive option, even though it seems like it's the closest one, due to some drainage issues and things like that. So they got innovative a little bit, and they have a cheaper option for us to come off of Queen, and still go into the northwest corner of the field green space, and create our development, but at far less cost to the taxpayer. And still being able to fence off both fields and allow them to be maintained in operation. So kudos to the guys for thinking outside the box once they didn't like the first option. So Alex's team is going to sketch that up for us, the new concept for us, I believe, and so we can send it around to you folks to get a go-ahead, hopefully, to get that rolling. I know locates have been requested by the department to make sure that that plan before you dig scenario is taken care of. So where should we go? Should be good to go.
It was just one of those situations where when you're looking at GIS or maps, everything looks good. But when you put your boots on the ground and say, what's this really going to take? That's when maybe there's a better option that impacts things less. And I think we hopefully got a good solution.
We got it, yeah.
Okay, questions? Councillor?
Thank you. Not a question, just a comment. On August the 9th at 12 o'clock noon, I've been asked to cut a ribbon on the new crosswalk, on the LGBT crosswalk. And I think that's great, and I'd like to see, people come out for that, because I think it's I think that the crosswalk looks wonderful, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I'm very proud to be able to cut the ribbon and to have a little, I think pink lemonade is on the agenda. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think it's great, and I'm certainly happy to oblige. Thank you.
I'm going to use a keyword from Councillor or Acting Mayor tonight, Greenlaw, as asset management. And I think we need to do some serious asset management, looking at the different parks and assets we have related to that, parks and recreation, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And it's just observations that I'm making, but I don't think we can do that in-house. I think that has to be done by the user groups. It might be really bad list when you first bring it out, because they're going to pick out everything. But some of these things have to be knocked off the list. I mean, we're going to lose the tennis courts up in Milltown. They're actually starting to lift up the underneath what they did with it, right? So those are going to be unplayable within a year. There's trees growing up through the chain link. That has to be removed, or the chain link's going to be gone. And I'm sure there's different issues with every field. I've seen pictures online of people complaining about fields, and I go to St. George to play, and I see that they're a wonderful facility, but it's brand new, of course. I mean, everything like the dog park, when it's new, there's no issues. But once we start going down the road 3 or 4 years, there's things that pop up, and we have to get them right away, or it costs us more money at the end. So I think we really have to take a serious look at that in the budget. And And it's nobody's fault. I mean, it's just saying that things get older and they have to be looked after a little bit more. And, you know, we're dealing with that up in the museum, in a 140-year-old house, and you haven't got the money to afford to do these things. But, you know, once the roof leaks a little bit here, it's going to rot down through here and it's going to go there. So we really got to really start looking at that. And I think we have to do that like at the first of each year and make the list and maybe knock 2 or 3 items off it and continue from there. But I've noticed it, I mean, even especially going to different places, like I go to Eastport, I go to Calais, and I go to St. George, and I look at the differences and I look at the ages of them, and I realize that some of theirs are newer than ours, but ours are looking pretty bad. And for a community our size, for recreation, and you think that you know, kind of a menial thing, well, you look at recreation and everything, but people are playing up in that park up in Milltown, so the people aren't in the gazebo yelling and screaming and carrying on and destroying the gazebo because people are playing sports in that park. So if user groups are using these, it kind of deters other people from using it. Plus, like our golf course had 50 kids going out or more than 50 kids going out just to go and try golf. And all of a sudden I see them out there today playing again. So they're keeping them off the streets and riding four-wheelers or getting into other stuff. So I think we really have to go and push some of that stuff, right? Not just here. I mean, the GCC seems to have that asset and all the different other ones. Like we see the reports on the Five Kings. We see reports on a different other assets, but we got to start reporting on the conditions that we have in our playgrounds and parks, right? But they're doing an awesome job mowing. I mean, I go down the trailway, and I know from my own lawn, I'm going to have to mow almost every week. So I know how difficult it is catching up to it.
Thank you. Councilor Rodas.
Yeah, I think what's happened between like the Legion situation and also the Milltown Dam situation, I had a realization that our assets that we even have are sometimes on the line. And so a formal request I would have is that we sit back down at the table with Anglophone South. I reached out to Derek O'Brien directly, inquired. He said, you know, I am happy to sit down and try to find some resolution. I understand with Anglophone South, the challenge would be is that if one agreement's made here, it may have to be matched in every other community. Like there has to be some sort of compromise. But for me, when you look at all the fields that are regularly maintained 75% of the year by the school district, and you know, for us to maintain them during the summer and have them all as assets, then what happens is if the Legion needs to put up a fence and we don't have a parking lot, well, we have other assets that are ready to go right in that moment. Or if the Milltown Dam construction's happening and things are pushed back, and let's say next summer we think it's going to be there, but then it's not. And then maybe something happens in the budget where we're not able to get a parking lot. And I would just like to be in a place, and I had parents request this too, that you know, everything is easily accessible, and most parents in this town will tell you that recreation is their #1 priority. It's what keeps them in St. Stephen. Believe it or not, they feel that St. Stephen has the best recreation programs in all of Charlotte County, and it's true. We've got just about everything going in this community for us. So to me, I don't think you can put a number on recreation, because the spillover into, you know, youth and teenhood and adulthood is just unreal if it can keep them off a four-wheeler out of crime. So if we can sit down and do that, that would be awesome. And then also maybe talk with the user groups about potentially like encouraging them to start their own association where all the chairs of those boards come together regularly and talk about what the recreation needs are. Because what Councillor Heislip is saying is true. Like, you don't really realize how things are going, and then you look around and think, oh my gosh, that tennis court is looking in rough shape. But if the user groups are consistently meeting with us all at once and just communicating, like, here are what we see are the priorities for next year, then at least council could know where we should start in terms of budgeting and assessing what we have.
Any other questions? Well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so at a previous meeting of council, we actually we discussed a recommendation to sit back down with ASDS, and that's going to happen. Mr. Sumner and I have been working on basically the pre-meeting strategy and the pre-meeting documentation. I have my own version of what I think is the ideal scenario, ideal future state, as you could call it. I want to get that out of my head and onto paper so when we do have a meeting, there's something solid on the table that we're talking about. So that's actively being worked on because, and I said to Mr. Sumner and to the mayor as well, I've been fortunate enough to travel the province a lot with athletic children as well, and I see what other communities are doing, and I see the potential that is already in the community in the assets that are held at the high school, at the other schools. The base is there. The base is there to do something really, really nice. We just need to find a way through the landmines of politics and budgets and things like that. So that's where we're at. It's actively underway. It's just we're trying to get our vision articulated onto paper so that when we do have a meeting, we're not just going in. We look at it with a vague, we'd like to find a way to make this better. We'd like to go in with, do you think this is a good idea? And if we say get to yes, then now we're just talking about, we have the destination, how are we getting from where we are today to there? So that's the approach we're taking. It will take some time for sure. It'll be a lot of, like you say, there's a lot of conversations, and obviously I have a lot of respect for the position that the SDS is in, because like you say, it can certainly set a precedent if a deal's cut in one location and everybody else is coming to the table as well. So, but yeah, the point is very well received and agreed to. We're just doing our homework right now.
My other question is do we actually 100% know how many people are enrolled in each sport just for parking purposes? Because, even when the Legion parking lot was available, there's still usually an overflow out on the street. So I am curious about that. That's not a bad idea to talk to all the associations. And because some sports since COVID seem to be retaking off again and growing, like almost doubling in size year to year. So it would be good if we're looking at our assets and we're going to invest in a parking lot, it would be great to have a parking lot where everyone can fit. If you think about all those different fields around there, and we can't actually, if we don't have the space to build something that can accommodate all those people, then maybe it's not worth the investment. It would just be good to speak with those groups and know how many people are actually playing those sports. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so next would be Treasurer's Report. I'll leave that to you, Jeff.
As we have done for the last while, we've excused Mr. Tozer from attendance as he's focusing on important tasks with relation to our financial reporting. So I'll let his report as written stand. If there's questions, I'll certainly communicate those to him, but I don't think I'm in the best position to answer questions on the details of his work, so I'll happily take the questions and report back.
I'll send. I had one here. When I'm looking at the utility, I see that the revenue to date, year to date, is 30%, but the expenditures are 44%. So it looks like we're behind a little bit. So
part of that would be a set of bills just left the office, so there'll be another influx of revenue coming quite quickly here.
Okay, we'll go to Future St. Stephen.
Hello. Okay. I'm Genevieve Coach, Genevieve Jen, whichever's easier for you to say. I'm the interim chair right now for Future St. Stephen. So one item that we did submit yesterday, you guys should all have your inboxes for review for next time, is just our future plans for moving forward. We recently had our AGM, so we had some planning. We do have some interest from some other local leaders about joining the board, which is great. There is a lot of interest for economic development, which over the last few years, because of the pandemic, it kind of dropped off. So, we're really looking forward to kind of some of those movements and continuing the relationship going forward. Just some quick updates for what's occurred in June and July. The main point on the hotel, we did see that the closed auction did complete and no bids were accepted, so it has been listed for commercial sale. You've probably seen the listing for it. We do continue to have hotel developers who are interested in building here. A lot of it comes down to investment, the cost for land. Something we would encourage is in the next little while, we'd love to help facilitate a discussion between potentially some of the developers and the town about potential investment opportunities or partnerships there. The great news is we did partner with one of the developers in May to commission a feasibility report. That was done in 2018. In 2018, it was negative. It said a hotel should not be built. The 2024 report says yes, 100% St. Stephen should have a hotel. So we do have access to that report, and that's for us very, very positive. And we've regained interest from hotel developers. So we hope to continue to move that one forward. On the housing side, we've worked really closely with the RSC as well as with the town on bringing in some of our developers. Right now, as it says, we're about 240 new units over the next 5 years across various different projects. That's really continues to be kind of one of our key focus areas. Housing continues to kind of limit some of the other areas for economic development, because if there's not places for people to stay, you can't bring businesses in to hire them. It is a common issue we've run into with bringing in some areas potentially and new businesses. So that's one we continue to focus on, continue to bring in as many opportunities as possible regarding that. Transportation, nothing's really changed on the carry side with the ride share. We're continuing to see that it seems to be working as an option. As a reminder, it is a 6-month pilot. So far, it's gone well. St. Andrews continues to evaluate whether it's going to work for them, but we did expand the area, so you can travel throughout Charlotte County if you're going or coming from the St. Stephen, the greater St. Stephen area. There was an increased flyer drop done. Jeremy mentioned that in the May meeting, with full instructions on how to use it, what it was, and we did get fairly positive feedback from most people around that. So like Emily mentioned, is once people kind of get the feeling for what it is, it seems to be something they appreciate. Long-term success, of course, as with every other service, is going to depend on the use of it. So we have that pilot here to make sure we can have that as an option, and hopefully it does continue past that pilot period. Business support, just a shout out to Michelle Vest at the Civic Center. We were approached by many food vendors who were maybe interested in selling within St. Stephen, but didn't want to necessarily invest right away in the commercial kitchen. That setup can be quite expensive. So Michelle was able to provide us with the information for how the services in the facility here could be rented. So that's something we've actually added to our resources, so that when someone asks that question, we're providing with them that directly and making that connection. So that's a great use, and just a shout out for Michelle for having that prepared and ready to go, because it does allow us to kind of bring in more businesses in an easy manner. And the last one we talked about during the citizen question period with the shopping survey. So that was completed as a partnership with the RSC, which is really great because they're handling the data analysis side. They're going to use that information for their economic development report. The 2017 survey, most of the identified gaps are now fulfilled throughout the town. So we have had a really great response. We've had the paper copies come to the office. I was there today. We have quite a stack of them, and very varied responses as to kind of what people feel are missing. So we'll look forward to kind of sharing the information around that as to the feedback from the residents within the community as to what they feel is still missing for retail services that would help them spend more income within the community and what they're going outside the community for. Yeah.
Councilor Rodas?
Okay, I've got a couple things. So for the business scan, I'm wondering if when people are actively, let's say they're just opening a business, does Future St. Stephen kind of monitor maybe like quarterly or every 6 months, like how that business feels that they're doing? And then when a business ends up closing, I would love to know kind of like the reasons why that business closed, maybe some gaps they felt that weren't met along the way, and then what their plans are to pivot for the future. So that's one thing I just question.
Yeah, for sure. So we do try and engage with when we hear about a new business. Typically that's our president role, or if someone on the board has a connection to the business. A lot of times we will get new businesses. One of the most common thing we get approached about is space. So what's available for space. So we do keep kind of an inventory of what we know is available, what land's available, just so we can kind of quickly respond to those types of requests. The exit idea is a great idea. I'm going to take that one back to the board. Perhaps we could put something in place. We try and work with the chamber as well as downtown St. Stephen on that, just to get a feel for what businesses are missing and why we might be losing some. A lot of our focus is on the front end of kind of bringing people in, but I like the idea of maybe we can add something on the other side.
And this is my request, my formal request for you to look into this business. You can put this bug in Jeremy's ear, but I would love to see Future St. Stephen look into a food co-op in this community. I think the prices of food are astronomical. We don't have a lot of competition. It's not as easy as it used to be to shop over the river and get things at a good cost. I know that years ago Fredericton did it. They fought really hard for it. I think it was hard for them to get it started, but I've looked into it, and it is quite complex. Like, there's a lot of key players that need to be around the table to initiate something, but I think that would be something that families in our community would really appreciate, is having another opportunity to shop for food, and maybe something that they can even have a share in. So, food co-op, that's my plug.
Yeah, so anecdotally, having kind of looked through some of the surveys, definitely, I think once we see the full analysis, we'll all see that groceries is a key one. So what we did with the 2017 survey was have a list of, what the gaps were identified as, and anytime we were approached by different entrepreneurs, or if there was an opportunity to approach someone, that's kind of where we focus. So I can certainly put that on there, and I also believe it's going to show up anyways, based on what we've already seen in some of the quick review of it.
Councillor Harding?
Thank you. I can't tell you how happy I am to see number one when you're talking about the hotel. For many, many years, I've been on this council. For many years, I've been trying to get the drugs out of town, and if you drive through town today, you can see how well I did on that project. Now, I hope that this hotel will go through, because when you drive through town and you see everybody who's in the Civic Center and who comes here for the weekend or whatever, we need a hotel. And we need a hotel specifically, I think, for the Civic Center. So I can't tell you how glad I am to see that. Keep up the good work.
Any other questions? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the reports as presented?
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, move on to new business. So, Rail Safety Week.
It's all you. It's all you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got it right here. Proclamation in support of Rail Safety Week. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 2-3 to 2-9, 2024, whereas 229 railway crossing and 229 railway crossing and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2023, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 39 avoidable serious injuries. And whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railway rights-of-way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail-grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness, whereas CN and Operation Lifesaver have requested Council to make this proclamation in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality, and approved by the mayor. Okay. Next item is Hanson Cove access. Councillor Cornish. Hanson Cove access.
Thank you, sir. I think this is no surprise to everybody here. We discussed this in our Kyle session a couple of weeks ago. Dealing with Hanson Cove, I'm not going to go into all the details again. I've been dealing with this now for a year and a half or more, and council has been very supportive. And Hanson Cove is basically a road extension from Mahannis in Ward 1. I apologize, I do not know what the route is. I was trying to find it a minute ago, but I couldn't find it. But Mahannis basically goes into the Hanson Cove, which goes into Woodland Lake. I've been pushing for several items on there, but the most urgent one that comes to mind is that, and it's probably in Sean's report, it says forest fire. I'm assuming that is the same location that we did have a forest fire a few weeks ago. The road is in deteriorated condition. We've tried to get the government to grade it. It does not need a lot of work. Probably some tailgated gravel and a grader, maybe one culvert section. According to reports from some of the people at the fire that attended this, the fire trucks have hard difficulty getting in and out of there. My wife and I have tried it the other day with my four-wheeler truck, four-drive truck, and it was scraping the bottom. She's rough. So I made a proposal that, and I've also talked to many residents in the Burnt Hill, Upper Mills, Mahannis area, and they're very concerned because of the situation that happened in St. Andrews last year with a forest fire that if it turned the other direction, it could have did a lot of damage to actually St. Andrews itself, proper. So I'm prepared to make a motion tonight that the town take some activity to try to have this road up to fire passable codes that we can put vehicles down in there, and I assume the residents could probably use it also. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. If a fire breaks out there, we've got Upper Mills, Mahannis, Burnt Hill, and really Little Ridge is not that far from it, and town of St. Stephen, Milltown, is within shooting distance of a major fire also. So I'm making a proposal tonight after talking to many people and here, and basically that the Council for the Municipal District of St. Stephen issue a letter to the Minister of Transportation under the signature of the Mayor, articulating the Council's concern in regards to public safety resulting from the lack of maintenance by the department, and that a copy of this letter be provided to all candidates running in the provincial election in the riding of St. Croix.
So is that a motion or a proposal?
That is a motion.
A motion. So we have a motion on the table. Second?
Well, I second.
Okay. Question? No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one would be the forestry strategy for NB Crown lands. Thank you. Yep.
So the letter came in from His Worship. He was CC'd, as you can see, along with a number of mayors. I believe this letter is a result of a meeting that was held in St. George to discuss many things going on in the conservation of Crown lands strategy. At that meeting, there was some discussion about a letter being drafted and sent. This is here if council wishes to pass a motion for the mayor to sign this letter on their behalf. We can have this prep for his signature, but
Do we have to have a motion to discuss it? Or can we discuss it without having a motion? I'm not sure.
You're the chair.
I'm the chair. We're going to discuss without having a motion.
Okay.
So, any questions from anybody here? Okay. Councilor Wright?
I was just going to say, I was at that meeting. It was very, very informative. And I do believe the most recent reports out of Jasper are stating that, reports had stated that lack of forest management was a big contributor to the fire. And so we had a strategy here that just basically needs to be given enough priority by the government of New Brunswick, and there were a lot of things, as the letter states, that we had no idea. Like when you drive down the highway and you see a clear cut right beside the highway, that's probably not the management sector. That would be private. That would be private landowners doing that. So there's, I think. I throw my support behind having this letter signed by the mayor.
So, one, who's it from?
Who would be the mayors?
No, but who wrote the letter? It's on behalf of all the mayors.
All the mayors are signing it, so it's going to be from the mayors when it goes to the minister. So, if the mayors agree to sign it, I believe the drafter may have been the folks over at J.D. Irving, but I don't know that for sure because the mayor's the one that provided it to us, so I'm not sure where he got it.
The thing I have a question, we are asking that consideration be given to protecting municipal well fields, watersheds, and areas of community interest in exchange for more remote areas of Crown land being made available to the forestry industry for continued economic growth. So they're asking that on one hand, they want us to protect area, like for instance around our watershed, but then they want to exchange that for.
So one of the things came out at the meeting, which was kind of eye-opening, I think, for everybody when the maps went up on the wall, is the conservation areas that have been designated from a practical sense, in many cases, don't seem to make a lot of sense. They are in rural, remote areas where the only thing in the area is the logging road between that area and the mill is being designated for conservation, and the stuff that's being designated for use is the stuff around the watersheds, which seems awfully backwards. So the discussion around the table at the time was we need to put another scope on this, that yes, there's probably some wildlife and things that might be in that area that need to be protected or need to make sure that they have their areas protected somewhere. But there has to be another logical layer of evaluation added on top of the current strategy, which is where this is coming from. Is let's give us back the stuff that protects our key items, our watersheds and our wellheads, and happily, if you're going to protect that, and in exchange, unlock some of the stuff that's really in the middle of nowhere that doesn't have any real impact if it's logged under a management plan.
Sir Heislip.
What do you have a feel of what the other communities are thinking on this?
Councillor, I was at the meeting. Councillor Wright was at the meeting. The mayor and deputy mayor, unfortunately, were at the meeting as well. I think there was a lot of, I don't know if as far as open support for everything, but there was a lot of surprise at some of the logic behind some of the decisions that seem to be being made in Fredericton, and a certain understanding of the situation that the folks at Irving were bringing to the municipal attention, because a lot of us just didn't know. It's not something you track every day, as what they're doing with their rural remote tree stands, but so I think there was a fair bit of support as far as the what area gets protected. That wasn't the main theme of it. It was the concept that another layer of logic needs to be added to the evaluation. Maybe not every area needs to be given, every remote area needs to be given up. Maybe there is a good ecological reason that it has to be that spot for whatever wildlife. But it's just, there just seemed to be in the presentation a missing piece of the evaluation, which is I think what the intent of this letter is to add that. Let's take another look at this through another lens and make sure this still makes sense.
So can I get a motion? Or second? Ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so into the next section, request for decisions. So on this one here, did you want to speak to this one, Jeff, or do you typically just?
Sure. So through the fine work of our EA/assistant clerk. We're continuing our work on updating policies and our policy binder, and Celeste was good enough to identify 3 policies that are in a position where we can recommend that they be rescinded. The report does show the rationale. Policy number 1 is a very old grants policy, which we recently already adopted a new format for that. Same with 23. And the municipal complaints policy, we're hoping for an adoption of a new, more modern approach to our complaints. And quite frankly, the policy 51 hasn't been put in practice in quite a long time based on its current wording. So we just think this is a housekeeping exercise as we continue to clean up our policy manuals.
So can I have
I move.
option 1 or 2?
Option 1.
Option 1 is to accept the recommendation. Second? Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Customer service standard. This is the customer service standard policy, and we're looking for, this is the final, final draft, so we're looking for approval of it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we had commentary from the public today, and all these policies are living documents, as we know. Right now, it's I'm looking to get a tool in place that in a spot that's currently vacant. That tool can be sharpened and honed as we go, and we'll learn. But I do think this is an important step in our administrative excellence strategy, SMART goal that you had set during our strategic planning session.
Can I get a motion that we approve the customer service standards policy as presented? Councilor Rodas? Seconded by Councilor Wright. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Municipal complaints policy. Wait. Okay, looking for a motion to approve the municipal complaints policy?
Yeah, I'll move.
Seconded? Who's?
I'll second.
Seconded? Question?
Thank you, sir. Jeff, as discussed a few minutes ago, complaints or inquiries from our residents, particularly in the rural area, and I think you may have covered it when you said it's a living document. I can go along with the policy, but this thing I'll be presenting at our next COW session may have some additive to that. So if that's okay with you, I'm fine.
100%. Things change as we go. The one thing, since I haven't got my mic on here, this policy does direct our citizenry to the E11 program as the primary portal. I will say in its early days, I think it's running exceptionally well. We've got a lot of cases have come in, a lot of reported cases, everything from tree limbs that didn't look right and needed to be looked at by the horticulturalist to potholes. And the big thing that to make this thing go around is the work of the department heads in constantly being on the system, constantly updating complaint files. We're still tweaking a few things around how the due dates auto-populate and whatnot, so that they get reasonable timelines to respond to these things. But that's we're doing that on the administrative side with myself and Celeste. But overall, I think the launch has been quite successful, and hopefully, this is just another tool for the citizens to, if they got a concern at midnight and town hall's closed, you can go right to the portal, and first thing in the morning, we'll have it, and you'll have a record that and a response in very short order. So it's a nice tool for the citizens, and it's been working well. Kudos to the guys that have been making sure that it keeps running well.
And a lot of things are getting reported that wouldn't have gotten reported otherwise, because it was too onerous.
One question I have is, would it be possible to even attach the infographic to these packages? Just because sometimes people come in to make a complaint, it's not even a municipal complaint. And you had made an excellent infographic that I've continuously still get feedback on, where people say, I was mad about this, and I went and looked at that infographic and I realized that's a regional issue or that's a provincial issue. So I do think that that's helpful to just have it all in the same package, because then if they're going to make a complaint and they see it's not actually a municipal issue, then they're redirected and you have all the information on that. So I think it's excellent, though. I think both things are great. I'm excited, and I think it shows commitment to excellent service. It's good.
Thank you. I was just going to say that probably any of the citizens who are signed up for Alertable would be more than comfortable using an E11 access. Has that information been made available through Alertable, that here's the way clients can, and did I just miss it when the alert came through?
We have pushed it out, and we will continue to push it out on a certain frequency, just to make sure people know it's there. But yeah.
What's the preference for council reporting? Because a lot of times I get talked to with Tim Hortons or wherever, right? And they say, well, there's a pothole down here, or there's a hedge up on, up towards, there is actually a hedge. I'll report it right now. There's a hedge up, apparently there's a hedge that's in the problem up there towards the Lincourt. And so I mean, am I going to get on that app, or would you prefer that, to get on the app and myself and lodge that, or do you, because I'm old school, I just usually send like, hey, Sean, carbon copy you, and probably Dave sometimes, it depends on what it is, and just say, there's an issue up here, and they do get it done really quickly. I mean, it's amazing, right? So. In
an ideal world, I would actually like you to have the citizens going to the portal and filling it out, mainly because then if they fill it out and put their contact information in, they're in the feedback loop. So they get to see the note that crew was on site at this time, did the assessment. It's going to probably be another 72 hours before we get to it. They'll get that as a constant feedback instead of constantly going to you saying, well, have they done anything? Right? So a couple of options. I mean, you could enter that stuff into the system for them. But if you telling me right now today, if you're lucky, if you're me or Celeste will remember to go create a work order for you. But either you can put it in the system, or have the citizen who's doing better put it in the system, because really it's about that feedback loop. That's the really important part, because as people get the feedback loop and they see that things are being addressed and being done, and why there's a delay perhaps, what it grows is the number of eyes we have in the community. You talk about the recreation areas, right? If those groups went onto the system and said, hey, we've got a fencing problem at this location, snap a picture with your phone and load it up. In the morning, the first thing that we load up is our work order board, our dashboard. And so when Kev's dealing with his parks crew for the day or for the week, he can say, hey, okay, this one's, I want this one taken a look at in the next 24, 48 hours, whatever his work plan is. And they get that, and you'll get that feedback loop. So it's just constantly trying to encourage people that if you see it, report it, and you'll see the action happening instead of just assuming it went to the black box of town hall and nobody wants to do anything. And it's a perception. It's a perception thing that we fight. You guys get it too. And that's the perception we're trying to get over. So the more time that we can get the citizen to put it in the system with their contact, the more they're going to see that, yes, it's being addressed. You may not have noticed them drive by and take a look at it. You may not have, but it has been looked at, and it's being we have a tool that gives us internal notes where we can say, Kev can say, I need Sean's help for this, so he can put a note in there that the public wouldn't see. But when we do a public note, it would be, hey, this is the plan. You can expect it in this much time. And then when they get it resolved, they get another note saying, your complaint has been resolved on this date at this time. Thank you for letting us know. So that's kind of my hope and dream, is to have all the citizens using that system individually, not necessarily having to go to you guys for every concern.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion? We already got a motion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, councilors' reports. Can I have a motion to approve the councilors' reports? So moved. Second. Call the question. Any questions on any of them? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And lastly, motion to adjourn?
Our favorite motion.
No, you got it.
All in favor of closing?
Aye.
Aye.